Silas Moren bought that abandoned farmhouse for $15,000, his last $15,000. He thought he was buying a second chance, a place to rebuild, a foundation for his 5-year-old daughter after they'd lost everything. But when he came back 6 weeks later ready to start their new life, he found smoke rising from the chimney and 2 strangers living inside the home that was supposed to save them. What happened next would change all 4 of their lives, forever. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. The gravel crunched under the tires as Silas turned down the long driveway. Dusk was settling over Alderbrook Valley, painting everything in shades of purple and gold. He'd been driving for 5 hours, and every muscle in his body ached. Is that it? Daddy? Leni's voice was bright with excitement from the passenger seat. Is that our house? Silas smiled despite his exhaustion, his dark brown skin creasing at the corners of his eyes. That's it, sweetheart. That's... He stopped mid-sentence. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. Smoke. There was smoke rising from the chimney. His heart hammered against his ribs as he pulled the truck to a stop about 20 feet from the house. Someone had been here. Someone was inside. Stay in the truck, Leni, Silas said firmly, then softened his voice. Just for a minute, okay? He approached the front door slowly. The door was slightly ajar. Silas pushed it open, and his breath caught. The main room had been swept clean. A fire crackled in the stone fireplace. 2 young black women stood frozen, their eyes wide with terror. They looked identical. Same slight build, same long black hair pulled back in ponytails. Sisters, twins. For a moment, nobody moved. Then one of them stepped forward, her hands raised. Her brown skin was pale with fear. Please, please don't call the police. We'll leave right now. We just needed somewhere. Who are you? Silas's voice was harder than he felt. The other twin moved protectively in front of her sister. We're sorry. We thought this place was abandoned. We've only been here for a few weeks. We haven't damaged anything, I swear. We'll pack up and go. Just please don't call the cops. Silas looked around the room more carefully. The floor had been swept. The broken windows were covered with cardboard and plastic. Someone had cleared out years of debris. The fireplace was clean, safe. How did you even know about this house? The first twin wrapped her arms around herself. She looked young, maybe early 20s. We used to live in Cedars End, about 10 miles from here. Everyone knew this place had been empty for years. We didn't think anyone would. We didn't know someone bought it. Daddy! All 3 of them turned. Leni stood in the doorway, clutching her stuffed rabbit, her brown curls wild around her face. Leni, I told you to stay in the truck. I know, but it's really cold and I saw the smoke. She tilted her head, studying the twins with bright, curious eyes. Are these ladies going to live with us? The question hung in the air. No, sweetheart. We're leaving, one of the twins said quickly. We're really sorry. We'll be gone in 10 minutes. But Leni had already walked further into the room, her small hand reaching out to the fire's warmth. It's nice in here, way better than the truck. She looked up at her father. Can they show us how they made the fire work? You said the fireplace was broken. Silas felt something shift inside his chest. He looked at his daughter, this little girl who'd lost her mother 8 months ago, who'd slept in a motel room for weeks, who'd watched their entire life get sold piece by piece, standing there with such simple kindness. Then he looked at the 2 young women. They were terrified, not just of him, but of something deeper. He recognized it because he'd seen it in his own mirror for months, the kind of fear that comes from having nowhere to go. Sit down, he said quietly. The twins exchanged glances. Please, Silas added, just sit. Let's figure this out. 20 minutes later, they were all sitting around the fire. Leni had curled up against Silas's side, fighting sleep. The twins sat across from them, perched on the edge of an old crate. I'm Talia, one of them said softly. This is my sister Mara. We're twins. Obviously, Leni murmured sleepily, and despite everything, Talia smiled. I'm Silas. This is Leni. He paused. Tell me how you ended up here. The twins looked at each other. Then Mara spoke, her voice steady, but her hands clasped tight. We grew up in Cedar's End, just the three of us, me, Talia, and our mom. Dad left when we were babies. Mom worked 2 jobs most of our lives. We both got scholarships to the state university. Full rides, agricultural science for Talia, business for me. Mom was so proud. Talia picked up the thread. We graduated last June. Everything was perfect. We had job offers, plans. Then in August, Mom had an accident at work, a machine malfunction. Her spine was damaged. She couldn't work anymore. Her voice dropped. We came home to take care of her, turned down the job offers. We thought it would be temporary, that she'd heal, that the company's insurance would cover it. She laughed bitterly. We were so naive. The company fought the claim, Mara said, her voice cracking. Blamed her for the accident. Meanwhile, Mom's medical bills kept piling up. We worked 3 jobs between us, but it wasn't enough. Mara's voice went very quiet. Mom's condition got worse in October. Infection, complications. She died October 23rd. The fire crackled in the silence. We're sorry, Silas said quietly. I'm so sorry. Talia wiped her eyes. The medical debt was over $80,000. The collectors came after everything. Our mom's house, our car, anything with value. By December, we had nothing left. We were sleeping in our car. Then the car broke down. Someone at the diner mentioned this farmhouse. We thought, maybe just for a few weeks until we could save enough for rent somewhere. But everywhere requires an address, references, proof of employment, Mara added. Hard to get any of that when you're homeless. Silas looked at them, these 2 young black women who'd done everything right, only to have everything ripped away. He knew that story. He was living a version of it. How old are you? 24, they said in unison. Leni had fallen fully asleep now. Silas looked down at his daughter's peaceful face, then back at the twins. He thought about the motel room, about signing foreclosure papers, about the desperate feeling of having nowhere to turn. These girls had lost their mother. He'd lost his wife. They'd lost their home. So had he. How long have you been here? 3 weeks, Talia said. We've been really careful. We haven't damaged anything. We clean every day. We only use the fireplace at night. The cardboard on the windows. That your work? Mara nodded. We found some plastic sheeting in the barn. It keeps the wind out. And you cleaned the fireplace, made it safe to use. Talia did that, Mara said. She's good with her hands. She checked the flue, cleared out all the debris. Silas looked at Talia with new interest. You know construction? She shook her head. Not really, but I'm good at figuring things out. I helped build sets for our high school theater program. Did some farm repair work during college. I learned fast. Something was taking shape in Silas's mind. It was probably crazy, but neither was buying an abandoned farmhouse with your last $15,000. This place needs a lot of work, he said slowly. The roof leaks. The plumbing is shot. Half the electrical needs rewiring. The floors need sanding. It's going to take months to make it livable. The twins nodded, confused. I'm a contractor. Or I was. I owned a restoration company. Lost it 8 months ago along with everything else. That's why I bought this place. A chance to start over with Leni. He took a breath. Here's what I'm thinking. I need help fixing this place up. I can't pay much. Barely anything at first. But if you help me with the work, you can stay. We'll figure out sleeping arrangements, get the utilities turned on, make it work. You learn construction skills. I get labor. Leni gets people around besides just me. The silence stretched. Are you serious? Talia's voice was barely a whisper. I'm serious. But there are rules. We're honest with each other, always. We all pull our weight, and we figure this out together. Deal. Mara's voice broke. Why would you do this? You don't know us. Silas thought about the phone call from the hospital, about signing the foreclosure papers, about the motel manager's pitying look. Because 6 months ago, I would have done anything for someone to give me a chance, he said quietly. So I'm giving you one. Talia stood up abruptly and turned away, her shoulders shaking. Mara moved to her sister's side. Thank you, Mara said, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you so much. Silas nodded. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we start figuring out what this place needs. It's going to be a lot of work. We're not afraid of work, Talia said firmly, turning back around. Good, Silas said. Neither am I. The first weeks were chaos. They started with essentials, getting the electricity restored, which required calling in favors and doing most of the rewiring himself. Talia followed him everywhere, asking questions, handing him tools, learning with hunger. Why are you using that gauge wire instead of the thinner one? She'd ask. Because this circuit carries more load. You always want to over-engineer electrical. Safety first. Makes sense. She'd hand him the next tool before he asked. The girl was a natural, quick, precise, fearless. Mara focused on the practical side, making lists, calculating costs, finding deals at salvage yards. She got a job at the Lantern Diner in town, waitressing 4 days a week. Talia picked up shifts at Brennan's Hardware, which gave them an employee discount. Every dollar went toward the house. Leni appointed herself project supervisor, sitting on an overturned bucket, offering commentary in her serious 5-year-old voice. Daddy, that board looks crooked. It's supposed to be like that, sweetheart. It's for drainage. Oh, okay, but it still looks crooked. The twins were patient with her endless questions. Mara would braid Leni's wild curls in the mornings. Talia taught her the names of tools and let her help with safe tasks. One evening, about 2 weeks in, Silas came downstairs to find Mara making dinner while Leni sat at the counter chattering. And then Talia let me use the real hammer, and I hammered 3 whole nails. Leni's eyes were bright with pride. 3 whole nails, Mara repeated seriously. That's impressive. You'll be a builder like your dad in no time. That's what Talia said. Leni beamed, then more quietly. Mara, do you think Mommy would be proud of me? Silas froze in the doorway. They hadn't talked much about Ellie. Every time he tried, the words got stuck. But Mara didn't hesitate. She set down her knife and turned to face Leni fully. I think your mommy would be so proud of you, Mara said gently. You've been so brave through all the hard changes and you're learning so much. I bet she'd love to see you hammering nails and helping build your new home. Leni nodded slowly. I miss her. I know, sweetheart. I miss my mom, too. She died, too. Right? She did. In October. Leni considered this seriously. Does it get easier? Mara's eyes glistened, but her voice was steady. It gets different. You don't miss them less, but it hurts a little less over time. And you find ways to keep them with you. Memories. Things they taught you, ways they loved you. Those things stay. Silas's throat tightened. He'd been so focused on survival that he hadn't known how to help her grieve. But Mara understood in a way he couldn't. Later that night, after Leni was asleep, Silas found Mara on the porch. Thank you, he said, for what you said to Leni earlier. Mara looked surprised. You heard that? I did. He sat down beside her. I've been failing her with that stuff, not knowing what to say. You haven't been failing her, Mara said firmly. You've been keeping her alive and safe and loved through an impossible situation. That's not failing. She misses her mom. I don't know how to be both parents. You don't have to be both parents. You just have to be her dad. And you're doing that perfectly. They sat quiet for a moment, looking out at the darkness. Tell me about your mom, Silas said. If you want to. So Mara did. She told him about Sandra Wren, who'd raised twins alone and made them feel like they had everything, who had worked herself to exhaustion so her daughters could go to college, who'd been so proud when they graduated. She was tough, Mara said, but also gentle. She'd work a 12-hour shift and still come home and make us elaborate birthday cakes from scratch. She taught us that working hard didn't mean you couldn't be kind. She sounds incredible. She was. Mara's voice caught. I keep thinking she'd be horrified that we ended up homeless. You didn't let her down, Silas said firmly. You tried to save her. You gave up your futures to take care of her. That's love, not failure. They sat in comfortable silence. Then Mara asked quietly, What was your wife like? Silas felt the familiar tightness in his chest. Ellie. She was the organized one, the planner. I'd get excited about a project and jump in, and she'd be the one making sure we'd actually thought it through. He smiled despite the ache. She was funny. Terrible jokes, but she'd laugh at them herself so hard you couldn't help but laugh too. And she loved Leni so much it terrified her. She'd say, I never knew I could love something this much. What if something happens to her? I'd tell her nothing was going to happen. His voice dropped. Turns out I should have been worrying about keeping Ellie safe. You couldn't have prevented an aneurysm, Mara said softly. I know. Logically, I know that. But there's a part of me that feels like I should have seen it coming. That's grief talking, not logic, Mara said. It makes us believe we had more control than we did. By spring, the farmhouse was starting to look like an actual home. They'd gotten the plumbing working, hot showers that made all of them emotional. The kitchen was functional. 3 bedrooms upstairs were livable. The work was hard, but there was joy in it. They'd put on music while they worked, and sometimes Talia would sing along. Turns out she had a beautiful voice, rich and soulful. Leni would dance while they painted walls or sanded floors, her joy making them all laugh. Silas felt something shifting inside himself, not forgetting Ellie, but making room for the present, for the sound of laughter in a house that had been silent, for the satisfaction of building something with his hands again, for the unexpected family forming around their shared brokenness. One Saturday, they decided to tackle the backyard. Years of neglect had turned it into a jungle of weeds. Talia surveyed the chaos with her hands on her hips. You know what this space needs? A garden? A garden? Silas raised an eyebrow. We're barely keeping up with the house repairs. I know, but hear me out. My degree is in agricultural science. I could design a vegetable garden, nothing fancy, just basics. Tomatoes, lettuce, herbs, greens. It would save us money on groceries, and gardening is therapeutic. She gave him a meaningful look. We could all use more therapeutic. Can we grow strawberries? Leni asked hopefully. I really like strawberries. We can definitely grow strawberries, Talia promised. So they spent the day clearing weeds and preparing beds. Talia explained soil composition and drainage while they worked. Mara took notes, planning out what they'd plant and when. Daddy, look! Leni held up a worm. Talia says worms are good for gardens because they make the dirt better. That's right, Silas confirmed. Worms are helpful. Everything's helpful if you put it in the right place, Talia said, catching Silas's eye. I think people too. That night, exhausted and dirt-covered, they ordered pizza, a rare splurge, and ate it sitting on the porch as the sun set. You know what I just realized? Mara said. 3 months ago, Talia and I were sleeping in our car, terrified about where we'd end up. Now look at us. We have a home. We have work we're good at. We have... She paused, emotional. We have a family again. Talia raised her pizza slice in a toast. To second chances and abandoned farmhouses. And to people who see strangers and offer help instead of judgment, Mara added, looking at Silas. Leni held up her juice box solemnly. And to strawberries. They all laughed, and Silas felt something warm spread through his chest. Not happiness exactly. He wasn't sure he was ready for that word yet, but something close, something like hope. Summer came, and with it came steady progress. Silas's reputation in the construction world started to rebuild. He took on a small restoration project in town. He brought Talia with him, and she impressed the client so much they asked if she was available for other projects. She's got an eye for it, the client told Silas, and she's meticulous. You don't find that much anymore. By June, they had enough work lined up that Silas officially made Talia his business partner in what they decided to call Hearthline Restorations. She cried when he told her. You don't have to do this, she said. You've already done so much for us. I'm not doing it for you, Silas replied honestly. I'm doing it because you're talented, and I'd be stupid not to recognize that. This is business, Talia. You've earned it. Mara's catering side hustle was growing too. It had started with her making extra food and selling it at the farmer's market. Then someone hired her to cater a small party, then another. By July, she had regular clients and was seriously considering making it a full business. I'd need a proper kitchen, though, she said one evening. The farmhouse kitchen is great for us, but if I'm going to scale up, I need commercial space. There's that empty storefront next to the Lantern Diner, Talia suggested. I saw a for lease sign last week. They started planning, calculating, dreaming. Leni turned 6 in August, and they threw her a party in the backyard, now transformed by Talia's garden into something magical. Kids from Leni's kindergarten class came, and their parents stayed, charmed by the unconventional household and the obvious love that held it together. Silas stood at the edge of the yard, watching Leni lead a game of tag, her laughter bright and unself-conscious. She's thriving, Mara said quietly, appearing at his elbow. She is, Silas agreed, because of you and Talia, the way you both just stepped into her life and loved her without hesitation. It wasn't hard to love her, Mara said softly. She's incredible. She is. Silas paused, then before he could stop himself. So are you. Mara turned to look at him, surprise and something else, something warmer in her eyes. Silas felt his face heat. I just mean, you're good with her, and you've been good for both of us. I don't know how to thank you properly. You already did, Mara said softly. You gave us a home when we had nothing. They stood there, the sounds of children playing around them. And something unspoken hung in the air between them, fragile and precious and terrifying. Later that night, Silas found Talia sitting on the porch. Need some company? He asked. Always. She patted the step beside her. They sat in comfortable silence. Then Talia said without preamble, You should tell her. Silas's stomach dropped. Tell who what? Mara, that you have feelings for her. Talia smiled at his panicked expression. Don't look so terrified. I'm not mad about it. I'm not. Please, I'm her twin. I notice everything. Talia's voice was gentle. And for what it's worth, she feels the same way. She does. She does. But she's too scared to say anything because she doesn't want to mess this up. What we have here. It means everything to her, to both of us. She'd rather swallow her feelings than risk losing this. What if acting on it does mess things up? Talia turned to look at him directly. What if it makes things better? Silas, you gave us our lives back. You didn't have to do that. You chose to. You saw 2 desperate people and decided to help instead of punish. That says everything about who you are. I was desperate too. I recognized it. Exactly. You understood what we needed because you needed the same thing, and we've built something real here. Don't you think you deserve to have something good for yourself too? Silas thought about Ellie, about the guilt he still carried, about whether it was too soon. I don't know if I'm ready, he admitted. That's fair, but maybe ask yourself, will you ever feel completely ready? Or is there always going to be some reason to wait? Talia stood up. Just think about it, and for what it's worth, Ellie sounds like she was amazing, but I don't think amazing people want the people they love to be alone forever. 2 days later, Silas found Mara in the kitchen late at night. She was recipe testing, surrounded by ingredients and notes. Couldn't sleep? He asked. Too many ideas bouncing around. She gestured at the chaos. I'm trying to perfect this herb focaccia for a client. Want to be my taste tester? Always. She cut him a piece of bread, still warm from the oven. It was incredible, crispy on the outside, fluffy inside, flavored with rosemary and sea salt. This is amazing, Silas said honestly. You think? Mara looked pleased. I've been working on it for weeks. It's perfect. Your clients are lucky. They fell into easy conversation about business plans, Leni's upcoming school year, a project Silas was bidding on. Then Mara said, Can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you think you could ever be open to having someone in your life again? In a romantic way, I mean. Or is that impossible after losing Ellie? The question hung between them. Silas could have deflected, but looking at Mara, he chose honesty. 6 months ago, I would have said impossible, he said carefully. I couldn't imagine feeling anything but grief. But lately, he met her eyes. Lately, I've realized that grief doesn't mean you stop living, and maybe Ellie would want me to keep living. Really living, not just surviving. She sounds like she was a wonderful person. She was, but she's gone, and I'm still here. And so is Leni. We deserve to move forward. That doesn't mean forgetting. It means making room for new things alongside the memories. Mara nodded slowly. When my mom died, someone told me that the people we love don't want us to stay frozen in our grief. They want us to take all the love they gave us and use it to build new lives. I think so too. The kitchen was quiet, except for the old clock ticking. Then Mara said very softly, I have feelings for you, Silas. I have for a while. But I didn't want to say anything because I was afraid it would ruin everything. This household, this family we've built. It's too important to risk. Silas's heart felt too big for his chest. What if it doesn't ruin it? What if it makes it better? You really think that's possible? Instead of answering with words, Silas reached across the counter and took her hand. Her fingers were dusted with flour, warm from working. I think you're one of the best people I've ever met, he said quietly. I think you walked into my life at the exact moment I needed someone who understood what loss felt like. I think Leni adores you. I think you're building something incredible, and I think I'd be an idiot not to see what we could be together. Mara's eyes filled with tears. I'm scared. Me too. But maybe we can be scared together. Take it slow, see what happens. But at least be honest about what we're feeling. She squeezed his hand. I'd like that. A lot. The rest of the summer and into fall felt like a different life. His relationship with Mara developed slowly, carefully. They went on actual dates. They held hands on the porch after Leni went to bed. They talked about their fears and hopes. Leni noticed, of course. Are you and Mara boyfriend and girlfriend now? She asked one morning at breakfast. Silas nearly choked on his coffee. We care about each other very much. Is that okay with you? Leni considered this seriously. Does it mean she's staying forever? Would you want her to stay forever? Yeah, she makes really good pancakes, and she helps me with my hair, and she doesn't get mad when I ask too many questions. Leni took a bite of cereal. Plus, she makes you smile more. You didn't smile much before. Then yes, sweetheart. If she wants to stay forever, she can. Good, Leni said, satisfied. Can I have more orange juice? By October, exactly 1 year after Mara and Talia's mother had died, the businesses were thriving. Hearthline Restorations had a reputation: quality work, fair prices, attention to detail. Mara's catering operation, The Gathered Table, had a waiting list. She'd leased that storefront and turned it into a beautiful space with a commercial kitchen. They started looking at real houses in Cedar's End. The farmhouse had served its purpose, but winter was coming. They found a place in town, nothing fancy, but winterized with 4 bedrooms. It had a big kitchen for Mara's catering, a garage for Silas's tools, and a backyard for Talia's gardens. Are you sure about this? Talia asked. Leaving the farmhouse? We're not leaving it, Silas said. We're moving forward from it. There's a difference. They moved in November, and the transition felt natural. Talia met someone, Nolan Reeve, a teacher at Leni's school. He was kind and patient and loved Talia's passion for building things. The first time he came to dinner, Silas watched Talia's face light up and thought, good, she deserves this. Leni started first grade and flourished. She'd tell everyone about my dad and my Talia and my Mara, with such confidence that no one questioned the arrangement. On December 20th, exactly 1 year after Silas had bought the farmhouse, they drove out to see it. Should we sell it? Mara asked. Silas thought about the terrified young women he'd found inside, about the decision to help instead of punish, about everything that had grown from that choice. Not yet, he said. Maybe someone else will need it someday. Someone like we were, desperate, trying to rebuild. Let it be there for them. That's beautiful, Talia said. Daddy, Leni's voice was thoughtful. That's where we became a family, right? Silas met Mara's eyes, saw his own emotions reflected there. Gratitude, wonder, love. Yes, sweetheart, that's exactly where we became a family. Even though it was an accident? Especially because of that, Silas said. Sometimes the best things in life aren't planned. Sometimes you just have to walk through the door and see who's waiting on the other side. In January, Silas and Mara got married in a small ceremony at the town hall. Talia was the maid of honor. Leni was the flower girl and took her job very seriously, scattering petals with intense concentration that made everyone laugh. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better than that. It was real, built on shared trauma and hard work, and the choice to keep showing up for each other every single day. One evening in late March, almost exactly 2 years after that first night, Silas found himself on the porch of their house in town. Mara sat beside him, her hand in his. Through the window, they could see Talia and Nolan playing a board game with Leni, everyone laughing. You ever think about how different things could have been? Mara asked quietly. If you'd called the police that night? Sometimes, Silas admitted. But I try not to. This is where we are. This is what we built. We built something pretty amazing. We did. Inside, Leni's laughter rang out, bright and joyful. She was 7 now, tall and confident. She had Talia teaching her carpentry and Mara teaching her to cook. She had a father who'd walked through fire and come out still capable of love. She had a family she didn't question, because love to her was just what you did for the people who mattered. Have you ever experienced a moment that changed everything? Sometimes the people we're meant to find aren't the ones we go looking for. They're the ones already waiting in the places we're brave enough to call home. If this story touched you, leave a comment below. Tell me about a time someone saw you when you needed it most. And if you're still watching, thank you. Because sometimes the best homes aren't the ones we planned for. They're the ones we discover when we're brave enough to walk through the door.